I had somebody ask me recently, they said, how did you overcome the fear of judgment? And I said, very honestly, I have not yet. But I think it's one of those things, and we've talked about this so many times, it's one of those things where if you run from it, it gets worse. Oh, you have a fear of heights? You have two options. You either avoid heights forever, or you say, you know what? I'm afraid to climb to the top of the ladder, so I'm going to go up one rung, experience that, then 2 rungs, then 3 rungs. I think the things that we avoid end up getting far worse for us because you're going to experience it eventually anyway.
Judgment is the inevitable byproduct of doing something courageous. Courage is doing it even though you're afraid. It takes self-awareness and self-acceptance to say, I am afraid of judgment. I am afraid to be disliked. I am afraid to be villainized. And I have to have courage to do this anyway.
Next Level Nation today for episode number 2040. The fear of judgment gets worse if you don't experience it. I had somebody, a client of mine, message me. Well, I actually messaged them, but they did a post on one of these social media platforms that went semi-viral. And there was a lot of judgment that came with that post. And they messaged me and said, it's kind of messing with me a little bit. How did you, 1, have you ever had an experience like that? And 2, how have you overcome it? And I said, I haven't overcome it. I think there are certain things you don't overcome, you just grow in. I don't know, am I ever not going to be somewhat afraid of flying? I don't know. I think I'll always experience it a little bit, just less and less and less than it was originally. And I said, well, I've had some similar things happen. And I said, it screws with me. I mean, it has really, really screwed with me. So I don't know if I have answers. And then I was thinking about it and I said, you know what? I think I might have a potential answer. I said, I've mentioned the fact that we're working with a pretty big YouTube channel. And I said, you know what I do? I go look at their comments all the time. Every time I look at their stats to update them on stats, I look at their comments. And I said, the reason I do that is because it allows me to see what having that level of exposure and creating that level of, you can call it passion or whatever, what gets thrown at you. And I said, I go through and I look at all the positive ones. But honestly, I think the ones I'm looking at more and I'm looking for more are the negative ones. And I said, what it allows me to do is it allows me to logically see it without emotionalizing it because it's not about me. And I said, so what I think would be probably a good practice for you is go on YouTube, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, wherever, TikTok, go to a creator, a thought leader, a speaker, a coach, an author, whoever, a musician that you love, and go look at all the hateful comments they get. You love this person. You care about this person deeply. Now, I'm not saying to do it from a place of comparison. All I'm saying is it's the exposure to the negativity that's not necessarily directed at you. And I said, and when you do get negativity from this post, lean into the feelings up. Don't run from it. Now, don't take it head on and let it crush you like some massive wave. Don't do that. But try to find some level of constructiveness. Try to find some level of growth from it, because this is going to happen again. And after that, it's going to happen again. And if you do want to continue to get to the next level and be more successful, the judgment's just going to get more as you go. I'm not saying it's going to get worse, but you'll probably have more people judging you. Last thing. I said, just like we're focused on appreciating compliments, but not allowing them to change us, I said, I think it's the same with judgmental comments. I mean, how many times have you been told you're good at this, you're good at that? You know deep down you can't believe that fully because you'll lose sight of who you are and you won't want to grow and you'll be focused on taking this compliment and say, yeah, I am pretty good. Yes, you are, and there's a lot of room to go. I think judgment in the negative frame is similar. It's not, none of it's logical. It's all emotional. It's all emotional. If somebody reached out and said, hey, Kev, I feel like the episodes where you talk more than Alan suck. That's an objective piece of feedback. Alan's like, you're right. Alan's on your team. That is something where I can logically say, okay, that person is probably more like Alan and they value Alan's opinion and Alan's perspective. I can understand that. But if somebody reached out and said, you guys are frauds and you haven't done all these episodes, like something that's just highly illogical, I would get really emotional about that because it's like, you're missing, I don't understand how you could possibly think that. Like, how could you possibly miss that? So just understanding the logic and the emotion of judgment, I think is super important. And anytime exposure therapy, like that's really what we're talking about. Anytime we talk about fear chasing, anytime we talk about imposter syndrome, anytime we talk about stuff that makes you nervous, all we're saying is just take it in a little bit of a smaller dose. And that's really what we're trying to put out there today.
I sent a Instagram post to Amy Lenius on the team. For those of you who do know Amy, you know who I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, she is the one who emceed at Next Level Live. She does group coaching with us. She's awesome. Okay. I sent her a post of people that are sleeping on the side of cliffs. So on YouTube, you can see this post. This is how rock climbers sleep on multi-day ascents. And it's just a post of people sleeping on the side of a cliff. It's a hard no, right? Hard no for you.
Hard no.
Okay, so I'm going through them, and it's basically picture it. For those of you only on audio, picture camping in a tent, except the tent is hanging off a cliff. Okay?
That is accurate. That is 100%
That's gonna be a hard
accurate.
no for me. These are what people do. They're just sleeping on the side of a cliff. No big deal. Just no. Some of us can't even get good sleep in our own safe bed. Never mind that. And Amy said, "Oh me, no!" Exclamation point. Haha, we definitely in all caps can. That is bananas. This is what I said to her. I said something along the lines, I don't know why it's not showing my message, but I said something along the lines of, oh, if they can make that normal for their central nervous system, how dare we be scared to share a lick of truth, LOL. Because I was on an entrepreneurial panel earlier, and I had to keep telling myself, like, Alan, you got to tell them this. You got to tell them this. Just tell them what the fucking truth is. Because we're making this sound way better than it is. And these kids need to know, listen, the traditional road, it sounds really cool to become a multimillionaire. It sounds really cool. But I got to tell you what comes with that. And eventually I got the whole panel talking about all their failures. It's awesome. It's like, we need to talk about how many times we've all failed. How many businesses did you fail? He said, well, at least 3, if not more. The other one was like, well, 2. The other one's this, and then we found out it was like 6. And I'm like, well, I had a failed business when I was you guys' age, and Alan has this LLC, that died.
0
right? So,
for this guy over here.
Yeah, Kevin's 1 for 1.
1 for 1.
1 for 1,
baby.
Sometimes
you got to step up to the plate. You never know what might happen.
But to the point of this episode, I had to go inside myself and say, Alan, they're not going to like this. Maybe the professor will be upset that I say this. Maybe the other entrepreneurs on this panel will be annoyed that I say this. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to tell them the truth. I have to tell these kids the truth. And so that was my point to sending that to Amy, is if these people can sleep in a tent hanging off a cliff, Alan, you got to have the courage to say what it really takes to win. And yeah, sometimes it comes off brash, or sometimes it comes off hardcore, sometimes I swear, and some of my clients have kids listening. I apologize. If your child swears because of me, I apologize. But also, I'm going to be myself, and people are going to judge that. So you give a speech in front of 1,000 people, you have 1,000 reputations, but you only have one character. Your character is who you are and what you are when no one is watching. And there's that great quote by Aristotle. He says, if you really don't want to upset anyone, say nothing, be nothing, do nothing. Become nothing. You're going to have to break some eggs, and I would be lying if I didn't say that it didn't bother me. And the last piece I'll share before I let Kev talk again.
Look, I had an epic monologue, so you got plenty of ground here.
Yeah, but the last episode was mostly me, and I want to make sure that you and I are both getting a word in so that we don't get too much hate. I'm kidding. I have a video that I keep referencing because I keep seeing the views go up and up and up. 953 views. 8 likes. I think that my ratio is probably 1 out of 10 people resonate with me. Maybe not even, to be completely honest. Kev, you got way better than that. And I told the entrepreneurial panel and the kids today, I said, listen, I'm not the likable guy. And that's okay. But I don't want NLU to suffer because of my lack of likability. I said, I'm what people need. I'm not what they want. I said, don't fall in love with your own product. I am the most obsessed with personal development out of maybe anyone you guys have ever met, and nobody cares. And all the other entrepreneurs started laughing. The whole class started laughing. Because the truth is, you can fall in love with yourself. You can fall in love with your own product. You can fall in love with your own company. But that doesn't work. You have to understand that not everyone needs your widget and not everyone needs your podcast. And you have to understand how to stay objective. And so my point of this whole thing is, Kev, you're used to being liked. I think that in some ways my life has been harder because I've been villainized more than you. But I also have a lot more exposure therapy to being disliked. I mean, I think a lot of people struggle when they post something. I posted a video yesterday. I think it has 330 views and 3 likes. One of them is my mother. And I just have to overcome this because I realized I can't be successful. I love the video. It's a fitness video. I shared my whole workout. I shared what muscle groups. I'm so passionate about it. I'm going to keep doing it. I don't think anyone cares. I realized early on that I don't like myself when I'm trying to get people to like me. And so I knew that I had to overcome this, but I don't want it to come off as I don't care what people think, because I don't think that's true. I think I do care, and I think my ego wants me to tell myself I don't care. And I think a lot of people who are very, very successful, they convince themselves that they don't care what people think, when in reality, behind the scenes, of course they do. However, they had to learn how to overcome that, because you can't be successful without everyone having an opinion about you. Some people love Amazon. Some people hate Amazon. Some people love Steven Spielberg. Some people hate Jurassic Park and think it's dumb. Some people love the movie Titanic. Some people think it's the dumbest movie ever.
How dare you?
Exactly. And so no matter what you do in life, the only thing that you can do to avoid any judgment is to do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. And unfortunately, you're not going to like yourself if you choose that road.
Well, isn't that the ultimate goal, to get to the place where you think from a healthy, balanced, centered perspective, you care more about what you think of yourself than other people? I think that's the ultimate goal. But saying, well, fuck those people, they don't know. It's like, no, I don't think that's the answer.
Yeah.
And necessarily, I think that's probably a coping mechanism. I've been there. And to your point, this person asked, when they asked me that question, I said, look, I don't get that much hate. So I'm probably not the right person to ask. I said, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I'm an underdog and people don't expect me to win or whatever it is. I don't know. But I said, Alan gets way more than I do. Alan would probably be better to ask that question to than me, because I don't get that much. I don't know why. I'm not asking for it. I don't want it. I'm not saying give me more.
I have reasons I think you get less hate. I think one of them is you tend to see things from both perspectives.
I try.
I think number two is I do think are more emotionally mature about things and pretty honest, but again, from both sides of the coin. And I think number three is you're too cowardly to take a stand on some things.
That one's always hard for me, because I think I do try to see things from. Okay. Okay.
I think it's mostly the first ones, by the way.
I know, but I have moments too where I'll be doing an episode and it's like, do I always have to say both sides? But like, that's what if you drink and drive, I'd say you're an idiot.
Okay, but that was hard to say, right?
No, that one's fairly simple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one's fairly simple.
But you're always filtering what you say through what people will perceive it as, which I think is strong for communicators. If you want to be an effective communicator, you have to do that. You have to know who's in the room. You have to understand the belief systems. You have to
I'd rather undershare than overshare and have to drive it back. You can always share more. But I think what gets people in trouble is they overshare and they say, shit. That's, upon further reflection, that's actually not how I think. It's like, well, that's what you said, and that's what most people are going to hear, and that's how people are going to remember you. So
facts are facts.
I'm trying to, in real time, just really think about, like, if Taryn left me, I would be devastated, and I would also be happy for her. as long as the person she went to was a better fit than I am. I'd be devastated. Oh my God. But it wouldn't be like, screw her, she's terrible. I wouldn't think that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that dumb? Maybe. I don't know. I think that's what I always aspired to. I wanted to be the person who was centered in that.
NLU listener, what is happening? I just wanted to jump in here and let you know, if you want to get to the next level faster, we have a free virtual monthly meetup at the first Thursday of every month. You can connect with like-minded people and become a bigger part of this amazing global community. The link to register will be in the show notes.
Question for you. When somebody comes up to you, assuming this happens, I don't know if it does, and it's going to sound rude that I said that, but you'll get it. When somebody comes up to you and says, hey man, you're in really good shape, what do you feel?
No one ever says that.
Okay. That was my fear. I've said that to you. Like once.
No.
What do you mean? I said that to you recently, mother goose.
No. Not in real time. Afterwards, you said, hey, you had a good showing, or you were looking good yesterday, or something like that. In the past, you never necessarily said it in real time.
I don't know about that.
We went to the gym one time, and I was wearing a stringer, and you were like, it was also amazing lighting in that gym. I mean, that was real good. I looked at a photo from it recently. It made me look like a goddamn superhero. But you said, oh, better than I thought. Very rarely do people, like today, for example, I met those entrepreneurs. And again, I'm in real time afraid of being judged for this. They're not in great shape. And they knew it. When I came over, it was like a circle of entrepreneurs, and they're all business owners, and we're here to talk entrepreneurship. But I had a moment of, okay, so you guys are very insecure about your physiques around me, and that's okay. And please just don't hate me. I'm here for the same reason you are.
Do you think, okay, if I was to say you're in really good shape, like if I came up to you, I don't even want to use me. If you were in the gym tomorrow morning and some young kid came up to you, some young high school kid, freshman in high school, and came up to you and said, hey man, can I ask you a question? And you're like, yeah man, what's up? And you answer the question. And then he says to you, dude, you're in really good shape. I look up to you. What would you feel?
It would be awesome.
Would you deflect it? Or would you own it? Like when I give you compliments, you get weird. Understandably, because I don't think you get that many compliments. When I get compliments, it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel like it would be more of that now.
Okay. I think that's
what do you mean I deflect it? It's okay. I just want to understand.
I'll say something. I can see it in my head. I'll start a compliment, and you parse your lips, and you get red, and like your eyes get bigger, and I can just tell it's uncomfortable. And I think it's like, yeah, you could stop. You could stop at any time. You could stop the sentence at any time. You don't have to continue going. Like you could stop it if you want. But I don't think you've been complimented that much.
Very little. Very, very little. To my face.
I was thinking of this the other day. I remember one time I used to deliver building supplies. Awesome job in retrospect. I just drove around Massachusetts all day. It was pretty freaking cool. I remember, and I was single at the time, so please be gentle with what I'm about to say. But I remember I'd have to drive through Boston, and it would be like at the beginning of the spring. And there was just beautiful women walking around Boston looking amazing. There was very well-dressed men walking around Boston. And I was just in my car listening to sports talk radio, or in my truck. It was like, this is not a bad gig, all things considered. This is actually pretty good. But I remember I used to get complimented all the time. When I would go to job sites, guys would be like, Jesus, man. Because I'd be moving heavy stuff, and I was in really good shape back then. I'm somebody who's been exercising along. So
yeah,
I saw Bruce in the gym today. Bruce, my 79-year-old weightlifting buddy. He's like, you're looking real good, Kev. There's no part of me that wants to not accept that, because I think I'm just used to it.
No one does that.
Well, I think that's why if you don't get compliments often, it's easy to deflect them. Because that is a judgment. It's just not a judgment in the way that we think about it. When we think judgment, we think negative. But that's only half of the equation. There's a positive side too.
I know we have to go soon, but I want to make sure I think this is a great opportunity to share something that I think is unbelievably helpful. You make a really good point about judgment being both positive and negative. And I've talked about judgment and why it's actually important. And I kind of went off on the last episode 2039, about science and math. And we talked on the entrepreneurial panel earlier about data-driven decisions. You have to take in data. So when I first met Emilia, my brain said, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, stunning, beyond her eyes, wild, beyond my wildest, unbelievable. That's a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And me DMing her was a judgment call based on what I was observing. Everything human beings do and don't do is based on judgment calls. It's based on data they're taking in. So no matter what human beings, they have to judge. There's a big difference between being overly critical and judgmental and hateful and toxic. And I'm not saying to judge a book by its cover, but before you open the book, you have to judge it based on something. You have to figure out what book to pick up. We all know this. On Netflix, they split test every one of those thumbnails for Netflix shows to figure out what gets clicked on and what doesn't. Every thumbnail on YouTube. So no matter what, judgment is unavoidable. I think unfair judgment is what we're talking about. It's unfair to judge Kevin based on one fucking thing he said.
But is it though?
Yes. Because I can't judge all of your character based on one out of context moment. However, it is a data point in the tapestry that is Kevin Palmieri. And I was on a podcast earlier today, and it's about men who have healed, and it's about intimate relationships and how if you don't work on your relationship with yourself, your relationship's inevitably going to be worse. And he said, well, have you ever in the past struggled with, fighting in an intimate relationship? I said, well, I'll tell you this story. I was with a woman named Courtney, first name, and we were at our apartment, and I punched a hole in the door. She was nowhere near me. She was on the other side of the room, but I was pissed off, and I punched a hole in the door. I bought her a new door the next day. I said, it's hard for me to even look that I would ever even do that. It's not my finest moment. Now, should you judge all of me based on that one moment? No. But do you have to take it in as a data point? Yes. And if you saw my childhood, trust me, that, ain't nothing. So how do we judge and always make judgment calls and make intelligent choices, which there's no difference between a judgment call and an intelligent choice. It's the same thing. However, not make unfair judgments. When you judge someone based on their race or based on their sex or based on their sexual preferences, that's unfair. But judgments need to happen. When I walk into a room, people are going to take a look. And one of the hardest parts of my life, and I know this sounds really probably silly because there's pros and cons to everything, but one of the hardest parts of my life at this stage, it's such an interesting, surprising thing, is that people, when they see the awards and they see tall and they see, white Caucasian male, they think, oh, privileged. It couldn't be farther from the truth. I wasn't privileged in any sense of the word, right? And it's unfortunate that I'm judged based on that, but of course, I can't be mad at that. Of course you're going to think I'm privileged. Look at my awards. Like, I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I get it. I am privileged, but not nearly to the extent that they assume based on my race.
Well, it's not in the way.
So,
it's not in the way that somebody would think. Maybe.
I think the only thing that matters is the way that you build self-esteem and self-belief, and you develop your own character. That's what it all. Because today, I said some things that were maybe perceived improperly in front of the kids and the students, and they were recording and all this stuff. And I just had this moment of, okay, Alan, at least you're being yourself and you're doing the best you can and you're not being disrespectful. Like, I try to go back to, I asked Kevin after yesterday's episode, I said, was that toxic or entitled? And you said, no, not at all. And I said, okay, then I'm good. Yeah, I said some things that are going to be taken wrong or judged me for, but if I'm not toxic and I'm not entitled, I'm doing something right. And I think being respectful is a good way to place it.
Well, and the intention too, it's like some people say dumb stuff to get clicks or to get views. They say controversial stuff for that intention. And so I think sometimes the truth is controversial. Oftentimes the truth is controversial. And that's essentially, we're trying to add value. And sometimes you're going to hear something that you're not ready for. It goes against your beliefs. You don't want to believe is true. It's the best of best to our awareness currently, like there's a lot of, that's why it's hard. It's this doing this is easier than it's ever been in a lot of ways, but also harder in a lot of ways because, you know, you talk a lot on the internet. There's a lot of things that can be taken out of context for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to look at the track record. I think that's the takeaway for this episode. For us at least. I think it's different for everybody, right? Because you're not a podcaster maybe, you're not on social media, whatever it is, but yeah, just like anything else, if you're afraid of snakes, the more you run from snakes, the more afraid you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced I wasn't afraid of snakes when I was younger. Why? One of my favorite wrestlers ever, his name was Jake the Snake Roberts. And he used to bring a giant boa out with him. Can't do that anymore because it was not. Definitely animal abuse to a degree, unfortunately. But I remember when I was young, one of my family friends had snakes. And I used to go over and hang out with the snakes. I remember I went to a theme park one time and they had this giant boa constrictor and I put it around my neck. Like, got a picture taken. I'm more afraid of snakes now than I was when I was younger. Why? Because I'm not around snakes anymore.
And you're also more aware that they can kill you anytime they
want.
No,
pythons are harmless as long as they don't wrap. I'm strong. Let's do it.
That's what I meant. The wrap around. I told you I was hypnotized to put a big snake on me.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm being playful. But the point is sometimes awareness actually makes you more scared, which means you need
That is fair.
You need to face that too. But
That is
fear
fair.
is holding all of us back. And if you are afraid of judgment, you're not alone. Even the people who say they're not are deep down. And it's part of human nature. And you can overcome it. You can overcome it. I said this to one of my clients. I said, listen, I know you're afraid to shine, but Beyonce's got the same issue. Way worse than you do.
I'm not going to say you can overcome it. I'm going to say you can make friends with it.
Nice.
I don't know. I haven't overcome it yet, so I can't tell you out there that you can.
Yeah. You can make friends with it, but, and to the point of that is, I said, Beyonce's got this problem way worse than you. Right? And you're not the first person to be fearful of saying the wrong thing. I mean, all of us know what it's like to be around our in-laws or our relatives, and it's like, okay, I gotta button up here and make sure I don't say the wrong thing in the wrong way. Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to do this. I think we underestimate that all the time. Like I said, again, I have a Toastmasters speech next week. I'm very grateful. I appreciate it. But I am constantly trying to recenter around my calling and what do I want to say? Like, who do I want to be? What do I want to fucking stand for? Like, I need to make a stand, and I stand for potential and personal development. And yeah, of course, work ethic. I said that earlier today. I said, listen, I have people I work well with and people I don't with. If you don't have work ethic, we're just not going to work. It's not going to work. It's a core value. If you're lazy, I cannot work with you. And that's just my truth. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you can't work at our company. You can't work closely with me, right? Because you're going to hate me, probably, and I'm not going to like that. And I'm going to get frustrated with you all the time. If you're out there and you're lazy, it would be hard for us to work closely together, and that's just facts.
It wouldn't be good for either person. All right, if you are looking for something that is good for you, head on over to nextleveluniverse.com. We got a bunch of stuff on the website. I think we're going to be doing a rebrand, new website type deal coming up in the near future, but there's everything there, everything we have to offer. You can get to the Facebook group, you can get to group coaching, all that stuff. And if you are looking for a positive group of like-minded humans, we'll have the link in the show notes for Next Level Nation, our private Facebook group. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. At NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep it next level. Next Level Nation.